So as we all know, Netanyahu, war criminal. Has he been found to be this officially yet? No. Is he one anyway? Correct. All right, great. What do we do with war criminals? Well, they get tried by the ICC. The ICC threatened to put forward arrest warrants for Netanyahu and some of his more Hitlerite cronies. And in response, Netanyahu's administration basically said, don't do that or we'll kill you and your family. I'm exaggerating only slightly, but threatening retaliation against a prosecutor for the ICC on the presumption that they'll seek arrest of your guys, kind of crazy. You know, kind of wacky. Yeah, exact. It's only a mild exaggeration. Now, in spite of the threatening that has taken place, it seems that the ICC is actually going for it, which is a pretty huge deal. Why is it a huge deal? Well, let's think. Okay. So Netanyahu right now is at a record popularity rating of 0. Everyone hates the guy. The only reason he's currently in power is because he was in power when October 7th happened, and he has leveraged the emergency situation to form a war cabinet in his war against Palestinian infants. And that has given him the sort of power and leverage to continue to exist as the head of the Israeli government. Now, nobody likes Netanyahu. In fact, just a few days ago, not long at all, the Minister of Defense said, hey, Netanyahu, that's enough baby mulching. Seriously, let's dial it back a little bit. Netanyahu, your thirst for Palestinian baby death is worsening our relations with the United States, increasing tensions in the Middle East, compromising our foreign policy goals, and overall unproductive. Maybe those babies should live. The defense minister said that he wanted Gaza to be run by a Palestinian authority rather than by Israel itself, which is, of course, in contrast with Netanyahu's strategy of not saying what his strategy is. Netanyahu has, up to this point, not only not said what he wants for Gaza, but defends not talking about it. Because his strategy is annihilation. And if that is your plan, you don't want to say it out loud, Like if you want to do big crimes, you shouldn't say that. So Netanyahu hasn't really explicitly said what he wants with the Palestinian people or with Gaza. He's just, been letting his actions do the talking. The aforementioned baby mulching. Altogether, the Israeli war cabinet is facing instability. The Middle Eastern vibes, kind of unstable. Popularity of Netanyahu tanked. Netanyahu probably isn't going to be in charge for that much longer. No matter what happens to the Palestinian people, Netanyahu and his closest cronies are not held in high regard and will probably not be in charge for much longer. So think about it. The ICC can't arrest Netanyahu in Israel, right? Part of that is because Israel is not a signatory to the ICC, but also, just practically speaking, you can't arrest a foreign leader when they're in their own country because they'll shoot you. You could show up to Israel as the ICC and say, hey, Mr. Netanyahu, I'm going to arrest you. And Netanyahu would say, IDF, kill that man. And that would be a strategy you could play, actually. That would be on the table. So they can't do anything there. But what if Netanyahu ended up becoming so unpopular, as he is now, that after the resolution of this conflict, or even mid-conflict, he had to flee out of Israel? Well, then the ICC arrest warrant would actually be a really big deal, Then it would actually be a real threat. See, the ICC doesn't pose any real threat to Netanyahu as long as he's in Israel. If he had to leave Israel, it would pose more of one. Not to mention the overall, loss of reputation, the condemnation. It would look bad. It would be a bad look. The vibes would be off. So anyway, with all that being said, that's where we are right now. The ICC prosecutor is seeking arrest warrants. Now, what that means is they have to go through a process, but the process has been initiated. I am being told that as of 1 hour ago, CNN put out an exclusive interview with the ICC prosecutor who is seeking arrest warrants against Netanyahu. He looks happy about it. I assume that's the guy. I don't know that for sure. Here's the announcement. That is indeed the guy.
I can also confirm today that I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes.
Yoav Gallant, by the way, is the individual who was putting pressure on the war cabinet with regard to Netanyahu's unwillingness to cement a plan for Gaza. So, you know, we've got multiple layers here of suit check. Looks good. What the fuck is going on over here? A side collar gap? Man. Come on.
Committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October.
That's Gantz, not Gallant. Oh, did I mix them up? Oh, my apologies. My apologies. That's Gantz, not Gallant. My apologies. It's not that person, okay? I'm even more confused because I was doing the Goofus and Gallant bit a second ago. So I was thinking like, wait, hold on. Did he just do the chat meme? Did this guy just hit me with that? Oh man, it got all mixed up in my head. All right, thank you for the correction. Holy crap, the frown. Yeah, her smile lines are giving her a crazy frown here. It's kind of cool, honestly. This is what an ICC official should look like. Looking like a real Goofus now. That's true. I am looking like a real Goofus right now. You know, the Goofus versus the Gallant streamer. The Gallant streamer never says anything incorrect flippantly based on a vague memory of a chat meme overlapping with the name of an official. The Goofus streamer, however, just says whatever. A concluder, one might say.
2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel.
From YouTube chat, Alex DeLarge says, I type in YouTube chat so I don't get seen by Vaush because I am shy. And then like a cute little emote. All right, sorry.
Treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, as well as crimes against humanity of extermination and or murder, persecution, and allegations of crimes of committing other inhumane acts. My office submits that these individuals, through a common plan, have systematically deprived the civilian population of Gaza of objects indispensable to human survival. We have reached that conclusion based upon interviews with survivors, many eyewitnesses, experts, from satellite imagery, statements from Israeli officials.
This is an actual arrest warrant, not just a measure. No. This is the request for the arrest warrant has been put forward. So the equivalent of this would be like the police asking for a warrant and then the judge grants it. Like the process has begun. I don't know what the approval of the arrest warrant rate is, but whatever that rate is, I doubt it's relevant here because this is a very specific situation. An arrest warrant for the head of a nation, not just any nation, but a U.S. allied, ostensibly Western nation, is insane. Even just the request for it. I mean, if it gets granted, has this ever been done before? I don't know. Genuinely, chat, has there ever been, this would be like the president of France having an arrest warrant put on them by the ICC. When has that happened before? Putin is currently wanted. Remember when I said Western ally? Remember when I said U.S. ally? Hitler. Yes, that's true.
Including the two individuals subject to the present application, as well as based upon several hundred authenticated videos, photographs, and audio recordings, many of which were taken and shared by victims and eyewitnesses themselves. My office charges Netanyahu and Gallant as co-perpetrators and as superiors in the
What does Biden say about it? Oh, that's a great question, okay? I want you to imagine, based on what Biden has done so far in response to the barbarous genocide of the Palestinian people, how do you think he'll react to it? We'll test your guesses soon. Everyone get your guess in now, because we'll go over the response to it soon.
commission of these alleged crimes. Israel, like all states, has the right to defend its population. It has every right to ensure the return of hostages that have been criminally and callously taken. Those rights, however, do not absolve Israel of its obligations to comply with international humanitarian law. Intentionally causing death, starvation, injury, and suffering to the civilian population, including so very many women and children, are criminal means to achieve military and political goals. That's what we allege. I have reasonable grounds to believe that 3 senior leaders of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Daif, and Ismail Haniyeh, bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes.
All right. We don't want to listen to any smearing done against Hamas leaders, because as the Zionists in my YouTube comment section are so insistent on reminding me, we uncritically support Hamas. You know, that's the behavior you saw from me on October 7th.
Prosecutor Karim Khan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, we're here at the ICC. You are today announcing that you are applying for arrest warrants for top military and political leadership in the Israel-Gaza war since the October 7th events. First and foremost, explain to me exactly what you're asking for and who you are charging.
Today, Cristiano, we've applied for warrants to the pretrial chamber of the International Criminal Court in relation to 3 individuals that are Hamas members. Sinwar, who's in charge on the ground.
Their suits are fine. They're keeping it buttoned even though they're sitting. You shouldn't do that. The swoop of the breast of a suit is meant to be worn while standing. You unbutton it if you're sitting. I don't really understand why people forget to do that. It's not comfortable. You can feel it pulling, and both, you know, like you want to unbutton it.
Sinwar?
Absolutely. Daif, who's in charge of the Al-Qasim Brigade, and Haniyeh, who's one of their political bureau based in Doha.
Let me just, for everybody to understand, Yahya Sinwar is the head of what they call the Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas, the military operation, or even wider. Mohammad Diab Ibrahim al-Masri, otherwise known as Daif, Commander-in-Chief of the military wings Al-Qassam Brigade, and Ismail Haniyeh, head of the Hamas Political Bureau. What are the charges?
The charges are extermination, murder, taking of hostages, rape and sexual assault in detention. So these are the key crimes that are alleged to have been committed by these 3 individuals. The world was shocked on this.
Neat. Yeah, somebody in chat said that, has any member of Biden's administration threatened to use this? The American Service Members Protection Act is a federal law described as a bill to protect U.S. military personnel and other elected or appointed officials of the U.S. government against criminal prosecution by the ICC. So basically, when the ICC came about, America was like, not only do we not participate, but if you try to arrest us, we'll shoot you. The act gives the president power to use, quote, all means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release of any U.S. or allied personnel being detained or imprisoned by, or on behalf of, or at the request of, the ICC. Apparently, the House is looking to sanctioning the ICC for this. It's also called the Hague Invasion Act. That's very good, yeah. Technically, the U.S. was a major shaper of the ICC under Bill Clinton, but before the ICC was formalized, George Bush got voted in, and the Hague Invasion Act came about. Yeah, because we don't want to be beholden to anyone else.
7th of October, when people were ripped from their bedrooms, from their homes, from the different kibbutzim in Israel. And people have suffered enormously. And we have a variety of evidence to support the applications that we've submitted to the judges.
And just tell us what the evidence is. Obviously, the world has seen the real-time images. The Israeli government has put out videos which it's shared to the UN and others, journalists, about what happened. There are body cams on many of the Hamas fighters, whoever was there at the time. Is that the evidence, or do you have more?
We have more. We have authenticated videos and photographs. We have CCTV camera pictures. We have eyewitness evidence. We have evidence of survivors. I mean, it's remarkable, the victims and survivors that have from Israel.
Bernie Sanders' statement. The ICC prosecutor is right to issue arrest warrants for political leaders who engage in war crimes. God, you're so based. They're going to censure. They're going to censure your ass for this one, man. The global community must uphold international law. Without these standards of decency and morality, the planet may rapidly descend into anarchy. Whoa, got a problem with that, man? Never-ending wars and barbarism. The ICC prosecutor is right, said Sanders. Yo, my man.
That have engaged with my office have this righteous demand for justice and accountability. They've come here. I've also met them in the different kibbutzim, and they want justice and accountability. So we have also expert evidence. So there's a whole variety of information that we have authenticated that we think is relevant and probative, and that is sufficient, we say, to sustain the crimes that we put forward to the judges.
You have also issued warrants against the top political and military leadership of the government of the State of Israel.
Yo.
We've applied for warrants. Of course, the judges must determine whether or not to issue them, but we've applied today. We'll apply for warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and also Minister of Defense Gallant.
Man, they're all falling in line. Biden ally Hakeem Jeffries joins in condemning ICC warrant request. Topped them in the House of Reps. Said the arrest warrant request by the ICC against democratically elected members of the Israeli government is shameful and unserious. I like the implication that being democratically elected means you can't do war crimes. That's very big brain. Thank you, Hakeem Jeffries. America's commitment to Israel's security is ironclad. I join President Joe Biden in strongly condemning any equivalence between Israel and Hamas, a brutal terrorist organization. Yeah, Hamas was elected. Hitler was elected. Technicalities, asterisks, blah, blah. New Congress GOP members are overtly threatening violence. Well, it's Brian Mast. This is the lunatic who was like hobbling along on his fake legs, saying to that reporter, like, yeah, kill them all, kill all Palestinians. Ugh. America doesn't recognize the ICC, but the court sure as hell will recognize what happens when you target our allies. Man, I love being in the country that is the bad guy. That is so cool.
For the crimes of causing extermination, causing starvation as a method of war, including the denial of humanitarian relief supplies.
Banger from Lonerbox. When the ICC arrests all your enemies at once. It is all a big power play by the Palestinian Authority.
Deliberately targeting civilians in conflict. And the sad thing really is in relation to both categories. I have been saying repeatedly in Cairo in October last year, at the Rafah crossing, on Israeli television, in Ramallah, everywhere I can, to the parties to the conflict.
Yeah, any Abbas cells
complain later.
In chat? Any Abbas
and of
risers?
Course, hostages have not been released. That insidious crime, it continues for so many innocent Israelis that are in custody, are held hostage by Hamas, and families that are waiting for their return. And of course, we see pictures of starving children, of emaciated children. We have a variety of evidence to support, not polemics, but evidence that's been forensically analysed to sustain the charge also of starvation being used by Netanyahu and Gallant as a method of war. And it's awful that in 2024 we have had to submit these applications to the judges of the ICC for warrants.
I'm going to get into starvation as a weapon of war in a moment, but first I want to ask you, the word genocide has been used by both sides.
By me. By the way, I didn't say this earlier, but I said the other day, like, I didn't know how likely it would be for the White House to offer condolences for the death of the Iranian president, and it seems they did, but with like an asterisk. Spokesperson for the White House National Security Council offered condolences. Okay, so it's not even like the president. Nah, never mind. I don't give this credit. I don't give this credit. Yeah, they're like, yeah, this guy is a bad guy, but like, yeah, we had an intern. Yeah.
And many believe that genocide is being committed, but you do not. You're not using that word.
Well, this is an active investigation, and we have criminal charges that we can use: genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. In relation to this current stage of investigations, the charges that we've put forward to the judges do not include genocide, but we are continuing to investigate. It's a very complex situation. We've not been allowed access into Gaza by the Israeli authorities. We're also continuing our investigations in relation to the Hamas attacks, and if and when the evidence points us in a particular direction, we will not hesitate to act. So it's still an active investigation, but yes.
You guys shouldn't be surprised that he's not officially bringing the charge of genocide. That would be a charge that has a very high burden of proof. You know, like, again, I don't think that means it's wrong to say that Netanyahu is genocidal at all. It's just you have to proportion your charges to what you think you can actually land. It's like, it was like the charge of Zimmerman after he killed Trayvon Martin. Like, they overcharged Zimmerman. Like, Zimmerman's a huge piece of shit, but they overcharged him. They made it almost impossible to convict him because they... What did they try to hit him with? Like, murder 2? Did they try to hit him with murder 1 or murder 2? But, like, the burden of proof there was way too high for what they could prove, what the prosecution could prove. Okay, we think murder 2 is very funny. Okay. Second degree, yeah, okay.
Today we haven't.
What is extermination?
It's mass killing.
Different than genocide?
Yes. Genocide is defined by specific intent, not only killing, but an intention to destroy the group in whole or in part.
Yeah, unfortunately, to conform to the legal definition of genocide that the ICC uses, you need to find Netanyahu's evil, diary, where he writes, "Nyah, I'll kill them all. Nyah." The standard of intent for genocide is gay and cringe, and for losers, I think his actions speak for themselves. I think the mode of his behavior, the way that he's handled things, the idea, I just don't care. Like, this is a legal technicality. This is like a semantics thing. I don't blame him for not going for the genocide thing. Again, go for whatever works.
So it's a specific intent to destroy the group in whole or in part. So we have not included in our application today a request for warrants for the crime of genocide.
So extermination, war crimes, crimes against humanity. I want to ask you about starvation, because although it was accepted by the ICC as a war crime when you were created in 1998, I don't believe it's ever been prosecuted before as a weapon of war.
No, it's not that I'm aware of. I think, unfortunately...
Oh, here was Netanyahu's statement in response to the announcement from the ICC, by the way. I reject with disgust the comparison of the prosecutor in The Hague between democratic Israel, again, what does democracy have to do with this, and the mass murders of Hamas. It's especially weird because Zionists have used the fact that Hamas was elected as, like, evidence to the point that Palestinians all support Hamas. So why would you contrast that with democratic Israel? Also, you have a war cabinet running right now. With what audacity do you compare Hamas that murdered, burned, butchered, decapitated, raped, and kidnapped their brothers and sisters, and our non-binary kin, and the IDF soldiers fighting a just war, he said in a statement Reuters reports. Of course, Israel's never killed anyone, so the comparison doesn't land. Netanyahu had said last December that even to subject Israel to any war crimes investigation amounted to, quote, pure anti-Semitism. That's so true. It's like, what was it, Ghazi Kodso, the Black Hammer guys, where, like, anything you said that, like, you're racist if you critique them in any way at all,
This situation will be a first, and it's very unusual. We see a population, large numbers of children and women that have already endured more than 17 years of a very rigid regime of allowing goods into Gaza. I think even in 2022, the United Nations and others said that 80% of the population, lived on humanitarian supplies. And that's just become even more pernicious since the 8th of October, with all the other restrictions. And, the words of the Secretary General of the United Nations, of the head of the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, WHO, UNICEF, I mean, it seems everybody in the international firmament has spoken with grave concern, extreme concern, but we haven't seen food, water, medicines go to the most vulnerable, and they have those rights, not because of something that I'm saying.
Is anti-Semitism just a thought-terminating cliche at this point? No, I know. Like, anti-Semitism is a real issue. There are plenty of Jews in America who they're subject to a lot of hate crimes. The issue is, like, what Netanyahu and Israel's administration are unironically like the Semitism equivalent of race baiters. They're not a common thing. For the most part, when I see people constantly bait, like, oh, you're only saying that because you hate my race or because you hate my ethnicity or you hate my religion, but they do it disingenuously, most of the time the people doing that are white supremacists because they do it to everything. Literally everything. Oh, you just hate us because we're white. No, we don't. You just ran over a baby. What are you talking about? Oh, you just hate me because I'm white. You just hit your wife in an Applebee's. What the f are you talking about, you lunatic? Like, most of the time when race baiting happens, when I see race baiting, I see it from white racists, from because they always have a fuck, or Christians, they're always doing the like Christianity is under attack, and it's because someone said like happy holidays to them at Macy's. So that aside, whatever you want to call it then, like anti-Semitism baiting or whatever, like race baiting, but with Judaism, whatever you want to call it, like, yeah, Netanyahu does that shit 24/7. But I'm going to be honest, grew up around a lot of Jews. Never saw any of them do it. I genuinely think that for the most part, Jewish people are actually kind of socially inclined to be really careful about that. Because maybe because there's already like a stereotype of Jewish kvetching that they don't want to like play into or whatever. Or maybe they know that they're such a minority that it wouldn't be met with sympathy, because oftentimes disingenuous appeals to like, oh, you're being a bigot actually, when they're not, like being disingenuous about it. Often those are meant to signal support from your in-group. But I think it's genuinely disgusting what Netanyahu and his government have done. And I think that it does embolden a lot of Nazi types, because now you have like very high profile, very objectively correct incidents of people who are making themselves the like public representatives of Judaism, saying like, no, any criticism of me is anti-Semitic. And it's like, dude, you're doing a Nazi trope. Like, this is just a Nazi trope that you're doing. You are like none of this has anything to do with Judaism. I don't think Netanyahu gives a shit about Judaism as a religion, just as a like pretext for ethnic power building. But like it's making things worse for lack of a better term, actual Jews, like for people who actually like it is a part of their identity or whatever. Ruben agrees with me. Ruben agrees with me completely. Ruben, is that true? Where's he even making those noises from? Invisible cat? Pog? Hamas cat tunnels in the room?
It's because it's required in the Geneva Conventions and it's required in the Rome Statute.
So, as of April 17th, according to humanitarian organizations and the authorities, whatever...
He's the practitioner of Judaism in the same way Putin is Orthodox. Yeah, exactly, yeah. When it's convenient, yeah. Or like Trump is Christian, or Trump is Protestant or whatever. It's like, they're not. Like, it's just like a signaling to a power base.
Exist on the ground in Gaza. 28 children under 12 have died, including 12 babies about a month old, because of malnutrition-related conditions. The Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, who today you are issuing an arrest warrant, or the request for an arrest warrant for, said on October 9th, 2 days after October 7th, we are imposing a complete siege. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are
It does make the charges a little bit easier when the people you're charging have just said, yeah, we're going to starve all the babies. It does make it a little bit easier to bring these charges when that is something that they have said, you know? Like if he had simply said, we are going to starve all the Palestinian babies until they're dead, there's your genocide charge. You know, you just have to lay it out real specific, like.
Fighting human animals, and we will act accordingly. Prime Minister Netanyahu on October 13th said, we will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. Is that the basis on which you establish intent?
This lady
Or
is excellent.
Is that part of your evidence?
Much more than that. But yes, some of the words uttered by the two individuals.
The Gaza death toll is kind of tapered off. Don't be so sure about that. The death toll has tapered off. The infrastructure that the Gaza Health Ministry was using to assess the dead kind of broke down. Like, the more Gaza got, the more difficult it became to keep track. It's kind of like how the death toll in Ukraine is way higher than is publicly tallied. You know, they're waiting to exhume the mass graves after. We've basically been without information for a while. We're just kind of like, we're only getting a trickle, a portion of the confirmed dead.
Minister of Defense Gallant and Prime Minister Netanyahu are, of course, probative and relevant. The fact that so many other individuals have said, words like there's no such thing as an innocent civilian in Gaza. They're all responsible. The words by members of the Security Committee. I mean, there's a whole variety of words that are said and done by the government that have not been disowned, that have not been denied, that the two individuals have not disassociated themselves from, and I think that's relevant. But it's a very complex operation. It's not just the denial of aid. It's not only the fact that as an occupying power, Israel has an affirmative obligation to make sure food and the objects indispensable to survival get to the civilians. They have an affirmative obligation. They're in control of the north of Gaza, for example.
Yeah, that's another distinction that Zionists like to pretend doesn't exist. Gaza isn't a foreign country. It's a territory in Israel. It's not like you're invading. It's not like these are all incidental casualties of a foreign nation. You have the obligation. They're your citizens, even if you deny them citizenship, like they are in your country. They're under your purview.
IDF tanks are in situ. They could guard aid convoys going in and making sure it goes to the camps. They're not doing that. But in addition, one has to look at a wider aspect. Water has been cut off. Electricity plants have been either destroyed or targeted. Fuel can't go in. Desalination plants are completely dysfunctional.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Somebody linked this earlier, and
Things were kind of bad during the pandemic, and what happened was, and when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic, and what happened was, Barack said to me, "Go to Detroit and help fix it." Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to. God love you. And when I was vice president, things were kind of...
Did he mean a different pandemic? Okay, I don't know. Ruben, you're such a yapper.
There's no desalination plant in the north of Gaza at all. Water purification tablets, filtration systems have been classified as dual-use objects, as have incubators, as has oxygen for hospital.
Or he meant Ebola. Yeah, he meant Ebola or swine flu, though it would probably be to his benefit to be a little specific, because when people say the pandemic, everyone means COVID-19, of course. Ruben, you can't yap that much. You can't yap that big. No, he wants to play. He wants to play. I stood up and he immediately went burr, 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 and like walked out. He wants me to run after him, but I'm working. I'm working right now. I can't.
As have anesthetics. One sees 90% of all the greenhouses in the north of Gaza destroyed. 40% of the land that was used for agriculture has been destroyed since the conflict started. 70% of the fishing vessels. I mean, every avenue that is so important to human survival has been constrained or suffocated because of a policy. And the words of the Secretary General of the United Nations, which said we're at breaking point, the words of UNICEF, the words of UNRWA, saying that we've got a trickle of aid in a sea of need, all of these giants of the international system, their words, their concerns have been put to one side, unfortunately, in the face of other imperatives and what seems to be a bid also for the collective punishment of the people of Gaza.
What
Does this mean Netanyahu can't travel internationally or be arrested? The arrest warrants haven't been issued yet. They've only been put in for request. The process has begun. It has to go through a whole thing. The judges have to rule on it. They need to be issued first. If they're issued, then yes, depending on the country, the ICC would have the legal authority to seek out and arrest Netanyahu, depending on the country.
is the international law on the restrictions that you're talking about? And for instance, the checking of aid convoys. The Israeli government says it is at war with a terror organization and has worked in coordination with the US, Egypt, and international aid agencies to get aid in. Netanyahu himself on October 29th, after 2 weeks of nothing getting in, another week later said, we must prevent a humanitarian disaster. What do you make of those words? And what is the law on stopping and checking aid convoys?
See, we have to look at words and analyze.
So he won't be able to leave Israel as long as he's PM? Well, he could come to America. We're not a signatory on the ICC. He could go down to Florida like Bolsonaro did after Lula da Silva won in Brazil, He could go lay down in a MMA fighters. What was the theme of the room? Yeah, the minion bed. Yeah. Hold on. So I'm picturing this. Okay, this is the room that Bolsonaro slept in, allegedly. Okay? This is an artist's impression of what that might have looked like. So I'm thinking something like this, but for Netanyahu. Do you think maybe Netanyahu's more of like a trolls guy? Like the 3D, the one with the one that farts glitter that I saw too many times on the movie ads? Something like that? We could get him something. They could be roommates.
Them against what is taking place. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been on the record.
Wait, it's even worse. The word in the prompter was recession, not pandemic. What? When I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. Oh, okay. So his fuck up was he said pandemic, but recession was the... Okay, so by the recession, he meant the very beginning of his term as VP, like in 2009, right after the Bernie Madoff, the collapse. Oh, man. So this doesn't even make any sense. I love Detroit for 3 reasons. Number one, my dad was not a manager. Detroit puts food on our table. Oh, not a joke. When I was VP, things were bad during the pandemic. And then Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Joe Biden was in Detroit in 2009, personally strangling to death people with Ebola or whatever. It was COVID-09, right? Not COVID-19.
Record to say that the access of humanitarian aid gives Israel important leeway that is being used. They've talked about a diplomatic iron dome as part of allowing aid in and not allowing aid in and all the rest of it. Israel has every right not to give succor to Hamas. That is not contested. Israel has every right and indeed an obligation to get hostages back. But you must do so by complying with the law. The fact that Hamas fighters need water doesn't justify denying water from all the civilian population of Gaza. There's an obligation. As I said, it's an affirmative, in addition to everything.
Again, it really is convenient for the ICC that Israeli officials have nonstop been saying shit like, no, we're not going to let them have any food or water because Hamas might... they have been so loud about how supportive they are of collective punishment. It's like they've forgotten that it's a war crime. For some of these, it's like the ICC doesn't even have to make an argument. You could just read a few tweets from Netanyahu or Ben Gvir out loud and go, yeah, okay, there you go. So, they said it. They admitted to it.
Everything else is an affirmative obligation as an occupying power that Israel is to make sure water, medicines, anesthetics, insulin goes to the people that need it. If tanks can go in, why can't those tanks and those soldiers guard aid convoys? So there's a lot of deficiencies that give rise not just to recklessness or negligence or indifference, but seems to be part of a criminal common plan to deny these objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population. And how many doctors have to talk about amputating the limbs of little babies or children without anesthetic, or how many people need to die without insulin, or how many people with 50% burns can be left by the doctors in the different hospitals because they don't have antibiotic creams for burns and they can't save them without that, for us to realise that the law is being breached. Now, this is what we have analysed, and we've presented it for judges who will make the final decision if warrants should be issued or not.
And again, you say that you have requested these warrants based on a higher level of evidence than is normally required, not just that there's a reasonable belief that it could lead to actual warrants and a charge, but you believe your evidence has what?
This is really excellent, I have to say. After so much media disinformation, it is genuinely heartening to see any reporter doing their job. Jesus Christ, her. Wait, your boy coming. Why her? Wait, what is she? She's been like great. This is fantastic. That's why I'm not saying much. Like, this is perfect. This is journalism. Did you mean someone else when you said her? Did you mean, what other her is there? There's only one. I only know of one woman. At any given point in time, I can hold one in my head. Maybe a few guys, but like, they're both doing great. Okay.
Well, when I came in as prosecutor, the standard for a warrant are reasonable grounds to believe. That's what the judges have to determine. Across all our situations, when I became prosecutor, I required the leaders in the office, the heads of the teams, to certify that there's a realistic prospect of conviction. It's not enough in these kinds of cases to have enough to issue a warrant. We must be able to bring it home.
On both sides?
On both sides. And in relation to both, I've determined, and the team are unanimous, that we have a realistic prospect of conviction in relation to the 3 warrants being sought regarding the Hamas leaders, and the 2 that are being sought in relation to Prime Minister Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Gallant. And of course, the judges will decide if you've got it right, and our analysis is...
I think the issue with what I'm doing right now is that I agree enough with the content of the interview that I'm not really meaningfully adding stuff to it. And I don't want to be in that position. It's not even a content stealing thing, you know? I just feel like if you're interested in the content of this interview, or at least the second half of it, you can just go find it on YouTube. And at that point, we're not even watching my stream, really. I did want to take a look at these clips that I was also provided.
Palestinians go. This is kind of momentarily stunned by your original answers. I forgot my question, but these will be brief. So are you okay then with the application for arrest warrants against Hamas?
We do not believe that they have jurisdiction over either of the parties of this
So
conflict,
you don't think that
includes Hamas.
You don't think that Hamas leaders should be prosecuted?
We absolutely believe that Hamas should be held accountable. That could be, hold on, let me finish. That could be either through the prosecution of the war effort by Israel. It could be,
in other words, being killed.
It could be by being killed. It could by...
My main problem with this guy, and I think you'll all agree with me, leaving aside the whole like genocidal apologia and the war crime apologia, I think this guy just emanates massive soy energy, and I think that our State Department reps should all be like, you know, mute up giga chads. You know, I mean, we're literally talking like state representative business. Yeah, he looks like a weasel. He doesn't look trustworthy.
It could be by being brought to justice in an Israeli court. We do not believe the ICC has jurisdiction over either of the parties in this case because the Palestinian people do not represent a state.
Okay.
And that includes the leaders of Hamas.
But obviously...
Well, it's called the International Criminal Court. Even if you're not a signatory to the court, that doesn't mean that they can't... Hold on. Like, they issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. Russia isn't a signatory of the ICC. Everyone in America was jerking themselves off raw over the arrest warrant being issued to Vladimir Putin. So, like, what was this guy bitching back then? Like, oh, you don't technically have the jurisdiction. Well, okay, it's an arrest warrant which is offered. So if they ever do enter a country where they do have jurisdiction, they can just arrest them rather than doing the whole like process. The moment they touch down. He said Palestine was a state a few days ago. I don't know. He doesn't believe any of this shit. He's getting info from his handlers, you know. He's lying. Here's proof from a human rights lawyer. Miller is openly lying here. Palestine has been a member of the ICC since 2015, and ICC jurisdiction over acts committed on Palestinian territory has long been confirmed. Just another case of the U.S. trying to undercut international. Like, it doesn't. He just says shit. He's a yapper. Okay, he's paid to lie. They all know they're lying right now. Everyone at the Biden administration is flop sweating over this. They all know that they're in between a rock and a hard place when it comes to how they manage Israel. They know they're just saying shit. Remember the last time we saw this guy talking? And he was like laughing while trying to respond to people's questions because he couldn't answer 90% of them. So we had to like, he's like, you can't ask that. Because, yeah,
The administration is also troubled by actions that Israel has taken post October 7th. So where is the accountability for that? Where do the Palestinians go? This is a question I asked Ned, a long time ago, over and over and over again. Where do the Palestinians go to seek redress?
Never seen glasses so low on someone's nose. Doesn't he look like the guy from the Boomer meme of the like, the stern-looking older conservative man holding a newspaper and looking over the newspaper, and he's giving you like a, oh, come on now kind of look? Doesn't he look a little bit like he's giving that with the glasses really far down?
So let me answer this a couple of different ways. First of all, in the short term, with respect to questions of war crimes, Israel does have open investigations, a number of open investigations.
Of itself.
We made this public when we released our report on National Security Memo 20, including some investigations that have become criminal investigations into conduct by members of the IDF. That is the first instance for judging whether someone has committed a war crime or a violation of IDF.
Oh, yeah, dude. That's a very reliable method. Ask them to investigate themselves for war crimes. Man, why didn't we try that in World War II? We went right to Normandy. Why didn't we ask Germany to, like, ask itself? Oh, yeah, this is the thing I was thinking of. Yeah, because the little rectangular glasses. I don't know. Just a vibes thing.
Code of conduct. That's one of the reasons why we have concerns about the ICC.
What'd you just take? I have a headache. I just took some ibuprofen.
ICC is set up to be a court of last resort. If a country isn't properly holding itself and its personnel accountable, that's when the ICC comes in, not in the middle of the process as they have done here.
Knows he's lying, knows this is bullshit. Yeah, you have to wait for Israel to declare that it's done nothing wrong before you can go to any other authority that won't obviously just lie and protect itself. Based on what exactly? What rule is there that you can't go to the ICC until after the party committing the genocide has already found themselves not guilty of it?
That said, ultimately, and you know this, Matt, and because we've spoken about it a lot, we believe that there should be the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. And an independent Palestinian state would have the ability to join the Rome Statute and become a member of the International Criminal Court, as every state in the world has the right to do. But that is not what. No.
Yeah, until then they're SOL. I love this guy.
No.
So where do they go in the meantime?
They are not SOL. I said, first of all, Israel has its own investigations. Second, we have accountability mechanisms here. We have processes that are ongoing to look at Israel's compliance with international humanitarian.
No, what do they do? Like, again, look, this guy's floundering so hard. Shit out of luck. Yeah, like, oh, you're being genocided. You need to, oh, don't worry, you're being genocided? Well, don't worry, your genociders are investigating themselves. Oop, they came up, turns out they're not doing it. Oh, don't worry, we're doing investigations over here in the United States, a country allied with the country genociding you.
Law. So there are places to look at these questions. It's just, in our view, fundamentally not a role of the ICC. And I should say, but remember, we have a jurisdictional complaint here, in that we don't believe the ICC has jurisdiction. But if you looked at this...
Again, this is bullshit. He didn't have an issue with the issuing of the arrest warrant against Putin. This is him faking a procedural claim so that he can avoid arguing his actual position, which is, please keep letting Netanyahu kill Palestinian babies. That's the actual argument. Don't look into it. Don't arrest people for it. Don't engage with it. We're protecting Israel. We're shielding them from international scrutiny. We're shielding them from the UN. We're shielding them from sanctions. We are protecting them. Do not look into that. We want them to mulch more babies.
Statement the secretary made that I echoed in my opening remarks. That isn't our...
If I were Palestinian, I'd be joining Hamas as well. Yeah, what's that great tweet? If Israel killed my entire family in its effort to destroy Hamas, the first thing I'd do is start Hamas too. This is really makes you sympathetic to the desperate, impoverished people who are given nothing and then somehow have even more taken away from them. Some Palestinian guy in Gaza, he speaks English and is looking at all this and thinking wow, I'm just a non-person. I'm not even human to these people, They're making a joke out of the eradication of my people. It's not even a credible lie. They're not even putting effort into being convincing with it.
only problem with the action the prosecutor has taken. We also have a problem that he has short-circuited an investigation and brought this action without waiting to see where these Israeli investigations end up, without completing the trip that he had planned to come to Israel to look into these questions. So it's not just a question of jurisdiction, it's also a question of the way the investigation is being conducted.
Well, so let's just focus on jurisdiction for a second. Who does have jurisdiction here?
So the government of Israel has jurisdiction.
Over the occupied territory.
We have jurisdiction.
Over Gaza, which is not entirely occupied.
They have jurisdiction into looking at the actions
Okay,
by their
so
military
the
personnel.
Palestinians, if they have a complaint, they have to bring it to Israeli courts.
We have jurisdiction, and we
You have
with the
jurisdiction?
use
We have jurisdiction. Yeah, man. I mean, that's true, but
of our equipment.
I'm sorry.
With the,
How do you have
with the
jurisdiction?
use of our military equipment
Matt,
that we have provided?
oh, so we get legal jurisdiction by virtue of us building the weapons we gave to Israel for free, but the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction because Israel hasn't finished finding itself not guilty. Again, it's not even a credible lie, man. Like, this is the Department of State. Like, Jesus.
How do you have jurisdiction?
If you look at the Leahy law, if you look at
that's not jurisdiction in a criminal process. That's
not in a criminal
over-
process, but it has to do with the determinations that we make and the policies that flow
but
from
that's
it.
not
So, but Matt,
So yeah, like he right here he's like, oh wait, that was really stupid to say. Like, let's move on. I look, okay, I know I'm paid to lie. All of these are lies, nonstop lying, but like, let's not embarrass ourselves too much for one day.
long term, you were right that we want to see.
You used to work for DOJ, Matt.
You were
Come on.
you-
There's no
it is-
U.S.
it
does
is
not have jurisdiction.
There are
here.
different. I wasn't referring to criminal jurisdiction, Matt. There are different ways to look at this. Long term.
Like, it's honestly insulting that they don't have a better liar out there. Like, they think you're a f***ing idiot. They think you're like a disgusting, sweaty pig. You exist to buy Ford pickup trucks and spend too much on gasoline. Your opinions are worthless. Is a democracy even relevant if this is the quality of the representatives that we get? You know, like, they hate you. They hate you. If they at least put effort into lying, at least that would imply that the opinion of the American people is something worth fighting for. But they can't even do that. They hate you.
We agree with you that the Palestinian people should be a state that has and have the ability to make these determinations, but that's not where we are today. That's where we're trying to get to.
You were fine with the ICC going up.
Go ahead.
This guy must hate that guy. Why do I have such a bad headache now? Probably because of the topic. Definitely because of the topic. Oh, I don't want to look at this.
The outrageous decision by the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, to seek arrest warrants against the democratically elected leaders of Israel is a
Why do
moral
they keep doing the democracy thing? Why does that...
outrage of historic proportions.
No, I'm skipping that. I'm sorry. I'm skipping this. I'll spoil the interview for you. Hey, did you know October 7th happened? I bet you've never heard of this before. Maybe also, did you know the Holocaust happened? This is just like the Holocaust again? Maybe? It's something like that. I don't know. I'm in the ballpark. I'm going to go to this point in.
The ICC into nothing more than a farce. He's doing something else. He is callously pouring gasoline on the fires of anti-Semitism.
There we go. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, it's yeah, you know, I didn't. Yeah, you know, I'm just, you know, yeah. At least he knows the greatest hits. Yeah, he's like a kind of washed up band. You know, they've got a new album out, but he knows, everyone knows. They're here for like the 3 ones that hit top 40. You got one to open with, one right at the end, and then one right after, like for the encore, you know?